Hi guys, I'm Saranand Rajendran, advocate practicing at Madras High Court. I'm going to give a lecture on the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016. First, by the name of the act or the code itself, it deals with two things. One is insolvency and the other thing is bankruptcy. What do you mean by insolvency? And what is bankruptcy? Whether it is both the insolvency and bankruptcy means the same, or they are two different terms. Definitely, all along we'll be using insolvency and bankruptcy interchangeably for the same meaning. But by seeing this act, we'll get the doubt whether insolvency and bankruptcy does it mean the same or something different. Definitely, it will be something different. Only because of that, the code has insolvency. Code is named as insolvency and bankruptcy code. So let us know what is insolvency and what is bankruptcy. Insolvency is the inability of a person or corporation to pay their bills as and when they become due and payable. So, to be simple, I can say if a person is unable to pay his debt, then the state of being uh, not able to pay their debts is called as insolvency. That is, if the liability is more than the asset, that is insolvent. That is insolvency. Then what is bankruptcy? Bankruptcy, when a person is declared incapable of being there, incapable of paying their due and payable bills, then the process of declaring a person as insolvent is called as bankruptcy. Okay. There is one another term which is very important under this code. That is liquidation. What do you mean by liquidation? Liquidation is the process where after the bankruptcy, after declaration of a person to be insolvent, then the process which commences is that liquidation, where the company or the person who is declared to be insolvent will be wound up, and the assets of the such person or such concern will be distributed among the creditors and the employees or the shareholders to whoever that we pay. So the liquidation is the process of winding up of a corporation or incorporated entity. Okay. Then insolvency and bankruptcy. It is applicable only for individual or it is applicable for corporate person also. It is applicable both for individual and the state of insolvency can come for the individual as well to the corporate. If individual is declared as insolvent, then that is called as bankruptcy. If a corporate, that is a legal person, is declared as insolvent, then it is called as corporate insolvency. So the insolvency is a state, right? When it is treated, what will happen? If it is not treated, then what will happen? Let's see. If it is treated, then by way of giving some solution to that insolvency state, by way of rescheduling the repayment plan, by etc. 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 or by some raising fund and paying and restructuring the capital or something like that. If that is done and if it is success, then that is called as resolution. That is resolving the state of insolvency. Then if that is failed, then it is called as not it is then there comes the process of winding up and liquidation, bankrupt, etc. So need for IBC 2016. All along in India, then there is no law for insolvency or bankruptcy. It is not so. There were laws that governing both insolvency for an individual and also for corporates. There is no specific or consolidated comprehensive law which governs both individuals as well the companies. So, and for want of a good recovery mechanism, IBC was brought into force. There is no single law to handle insolvency and bankruptcy in India. You see, Presidency Towns Insolvency Act 1909 that is governed in Mumbai, Kolkata, and Chennai, that governs only the individuals. Those belongs to those that three locations. The Provincial Insolvency Act 1920 that is applicable to the entire nation, that is applicable to the entire rest of the nation, rest of India. Then even the SARFAESI has provisions for the insolvency and the REDBI Act. The Companies Act provides only for the company insolvency in the liquidation of the companies. And the Sikh Industries Companies Act exists 5 years. We can say the SICA is the basic model of the IBC. Then the pro version is the IBC 2016 because even the SICA has all features that is made available in IBC, but it was a failure because of the reason that, for example, we can say in a cancer, if a person is in the stage 1, then he can be treated easily. Then he can be revived, can be brought into the old state where can be made as a, it can be like the person in the stage of cancer, he can be cured and he can be brought well. However, if a person is in the stage 4, then it is very difficult for us to revive that person. There are chances even for failure. That is the case of SICA. SICA always comes into force only when the person or the corporate is in the stage 4 of the cancer, not at the first stage, but IBC does. That is the basic need for IBC of the year 2016. So, feature of IBC 2016. It is a comprehensive law that covers all individuals, companies, LLPs, partnership firms. So it's a consolidated law that is for insolvency and bankruptcy of all the persons, individuals. All along, all these were governed by separate laws. Now it has been put as a comprehensive law. One chain of authority is the one of the feature of IBC, where you will have to approach authority and then thereafter in that hierarchy will have to go. We can't switch over from here to there. That is one of the special feature of the IBC. And one window clearance is that we can only invoke IBC. Now all other liquidation proceedings provisions in various acts were repealed and only IBC is the only window clearance where a person has to approach. So the IBC also has a regulatory authority which governs the entire process of insolvency and bankruptcy. And also the IBC establishes information utility Information utility is nothing but a database where we have all the information about the corporate data. So that if a particular bank wants to give loan or provide loan facility to a corporate debtor, they can view the database and get to know about the corporate debtor and the creditability. So withering away of multiplicity of law. That is nothing but we are giving up all the laws connected to the insolvency and bankruptcy and adopting only the IBC. That is the comprehensive law, giving up all other laws relating to the insolvency. Protecting interest of employee and workmen. Special feature of IBC is that it protects the employee and workmen in the process of liquidation. They'll be given preference and they'll be paid first. Only thereafter, the remaining debt will be paid. There is a complete transparency in the process of insolvency. And the IBC provides time-bound insolvency resolution process and liquidation. Yes, the whole process is a time-bound one, where 180 days is the actual days within which the entire resolution process has to be completed. Exception is that 90 days grace period can be given, that too with the approval of the adjudicating authority. Beyond that, it cannot be done. Now, evolution of IBC 2016. The IBC was drafted by a special committee that is constituted under Ministry of Finance, named Bankruptcy Law Reforms Committee. IBC bill was originally introduced in the year 2015, that is December 2015. Then both the houses passed the act. Both the houses passed the act in the year 2016, that is May 2016. The assent of the president was obtained on 28 May 2016. Now let's see about the structure of the code. There are actually 5 parts and 255 sections and 12 schedules. Part 1 comprises of preliminary, that is section 1 to 3, which consists of the definitions, etc. Part 2, insolvency resolution and liquidation for corporates. As I told you earlier, the code is comprises and gives insolvency resolution Part 2, that is insolvency resolution and liquidation for corporates, section 4 to 77. This part only deals with the insolvency resolution and liquidation for corporates alone. As I told you earlier, it's a comprehensive law where liquidation, insolvency resolution and liquidation process is provided for both the individuals and the corporate. So now this part 2 deals only with the section, only deals for the insolvency resolution and liquidation for corporates alone. Then part 3, that deals with the insolvency resolution and bankruptcy for individuals, that is section 78 to 187. Part 4 deals with insolvency professional agencies and information utilities. I'll tell about the insolvency professional agencies and information utilities in detail in further slides. Part 5, miscellaneous provisions, that is section 224 to 255. This is the structure of the codes. Code has created few agencies and also authorities that govern the entire process. I will tell about that. Insolvency professional. Who is insolvency professional? Insolvency professional is a person who administers the entire resolution process. Now, insolvency professional agency, nothing but the It is an agency which governs, or it's a it certifies the insolvency professional and also enforce code of conduct for their performance. It is the controlling authority for the insolvency professionals. Information utilities, that is also special feature in the code, which has the database of the corporate debtor, so that a creditor, when they prefer to give loan to a corporate debtor, they can view this, so that they'll get to know the creditability of the position, how the repaying capacity of the corporate debtor. Everything will be made available by this information utility. Adjudicating authority. This is the code provides for the adjudicating authority. There are two adjudicating authority. One is for NCL, one is the NCLT, that is for the corporate. The other one is DRT, that is for the individuals and the partnerships. Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. It is the board that is constituted by this code to regulate the insolvency professionals, insolvency professional agencies, and the information utilities. Simply, it is the apex body, promotes transparency and governance. It governs the entire process. So, insolvency professional agencies. What are the agencies that is for now available under this code? Let's see. Who can become an insolvency professional? A chartered accountant, company secretary, cost accountant, and also a RB advocate can also become a insolvency professional. IPA, Insolvency Professional Agency. There are for now 3 insolvency professional agencies. Institute of Corporate Chartered Accountant of India, Institute of Company Secretaries of India, Institute of Cost Accountant of India. Process to become an IP. It can be divided into 2. The professionals who has 10 years of experience, they can be segregated into a category, and a professional who has less than 10 years of experience, then they'll be segregated in another category. The professional who has 10 years of experience can directly go to limited insolvency examination, which is conducted by IBBI. And within 12 months from the date of clearing the exam, they can enroll themselves with the IPA, that is Insolvency Professional Agency. Stage 3, complete a pre-registration educational course which is conducted by the IPA. It is a 50 hours program conducted by the IPA. The professional either can enroll himself with the chartered accountant agency, or the company secretary institute, or the cost accountant. Any of these 3 institutes will conduct this pre-registration educational course, and thereafter they can apply to IBBI for registration as insolvency professional. In case of any professional who has less than 10 years of experience, then they'll have to complete GIP, that is Graduate Insolvency Program, which is conducted by the IBBI. After completing that, they'll have to undergo the that is Limited Insolvency Examination. Then they'll have to enroll with the IPA. Then they'll have to undergo the pre-registration education course. Then they can register themselves with the IBBI. So, adjudicating authority. Who are the adjudicating authority that is available under this code? For the corporates, including LLP, that is NCLT. Thereafter, they'll have to approach, as against the orders of NCLT, they can approach NCLT, and thereafter they'll have to approach AS, that is Supreme Court. For others, that is individuals and firms, they'll have to approach DRT, DRAT, and the Supreme Court. For now, the provisions relating to the individuals and firms were not yet notified. Hence, once it is notified, the DRT and DRAT will become the adjudicating authority for those individuals and firms. Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India, that was originally established under this code on 1st October 2016. Head office is at New Delhi. IBBI is a body corporate having perpetual succession and a common seal, so that it is a legal person. It can act on its own. The composition of members, let's see. IBBI comprises of one chairman and three members from the office of central government to represent Ministry of Finance, Corporate Affairs and Ministry of Law, and one member nominated by RBI. Five members nominated by central government. IBC, who does it apply to? Let's see. A company incorporated under Companies Act, both in under old Act as well under new Act 2013. Any other company incorporated under special statute, LLP registered under LLP Act 2008, personal guarantors to the corporate debtors, partnership registered under Partnership Act, proprietorship, any individual person. Then there is an exception. These persons, as against these persons, CIRP cannot be initiated. Who are they? KRD, banks, financial institutions, and insurance companies. Still, there is an exception under this exception, where banks can be made applicable to this code when central government notifies and directs the RBI, and upon the direction issued by the RBI, then CRP can be initiated as against the bank. IDC. So there are two stages of process. One is insolvency resolution process. The other one is liquidation. Insolvency resolution process is a process where the attempts for reviving that insolvency can be taken and will be taken. Liquidation, as we all know, it's a process after the insolvency resolution process. If it fails, then there comes liquidation. The company will be wind up and the assets will be sold and the debts will be cleared with the output, with after selling the outcomes from the sold assets. When will an insolvency resolution process triggers? Only when corporate debtors default. The default, there is a threshold limit. Minimum amount of default should be 1 lakh. Only if the default is more than 1 lakh, then IBC can be made applicable to them, and application can be made as against that corporate debtor. Who may initiate corporate insolvency resolution process? One is financial creditor, other one is operational creditor, the other one is corporate debtor. The company or the legal person himself can also initiate the corporate insolvency resolution process, so as to revive its position and to make itself insolvent condition. Financial creditor. Who is financial creditor? Is a person to whom a financial debt is owed to. Then who is operational creditor? Operational creditor is a person to whom operational debt is owed to. Corporate debtor is itself, the concern itself, can also file. Financial, what is financial debt? Any money borrowed as against interest, amount raised by credit facility or the hire purchase, amount raised any transaction including sale or purchase agreement. All these come under financial debt. Even the amount paid for buying a property, that is under real estate, then if he doesn't hand over the property within that prescribed time, if he fails to return the advance, then the buyer of a home can also approach the NCLT as against that construction company. Operational debt. What is operational debt? Debt in view of goods supplied or goods or services rendered. It is very simple. It is only in day-to-day transaction. What is operational debt? Debt in lieu of goods supplied or services rendered. Day-to-day transactions, debt is created in view of that day-to-day transaction or for the process of carrying out regular business. Then the debt arising out of that activities, that is called as operational debt. So now here is a flow chart where I have explained the from section 6 to 32 how a corporate insolvency resolution process will go. Now, financial creditor or the operational creditor make an application before the adjudicating authority. Adjudicating authority either it can reject the application if or admit. If it is admitted, then there comes IRP will be appointed and a moratorium will be declared for the next 180 days and it can be extended for another period of 90 days. The appointed RP will make a public announcement of the CIRP that there has been that a CRP process has been initiated as against that corporate debtor. Now the persons who they can file a claim petition to the RP of the claim or the debts. Now the appointed RP will make a public announcement that CRP process has been initiated as against this corporate debtor. So if anyone has a claim as against this corporate debtor, then they can make a claim application to me. That is how the public announcement will be. And the RP will compile all the claims that is submitted by the creditors of the corporate debtor, and he'll constitute a committee of creditors. Then the committee of creditors in its first meeting, they'll confirm if they are satisfied with the performance of the IRP. They'll confirm the IRP as the RP. If they are not satisfied, then they can replace the IRP by a new RP. And if and by way of passing a resolution with a majority of 66%, they can resolve the resolution plan that is submitted by the resolution applicant. If the resolution plan is approved with a majority of 56% voting, then it will be placed before the adjudicating authority. Then the adjudicating authority can approve that and also make that binds on the all persons relating to that corporate debtor. If no such plan is made or no such plan is provided, then the company or the corporate debtor goes to liquidation. This is the entire CIRP process. So guys, with this introduction part, we'll conclude this session and we'll see the remaining end to the forthcoming session. Okay, thank you.